I don't believe in an atrocity-based analysis of this. I don't believe I should be asked, do you support the killing of innocent people? Only the Israelis ask those questions, So, of course, all the weapons that will be used to fight the poor will come from Israel. But that's separate. In the 20 jungle warfare training schools that are coming up, because you see this economic totalitarianism, this kind of economic policy can only be implemented if we turn into an armed state. So we should be really ashamed of the fact that Pakistan, which is a country that has never been allowed to have a democracy, not because they are worse people and we are better people, but because the Americans interfered in their politics all the time, never allowed it to be a democracy. But those people who have only endured a military state are fighting for a democracy. And we, who only ever had a democracy, are fighting for a military state. Our middle class, our media are begging for a military state. We should be ashamed. But then 90% of their profits come from corporates, from advertising. So what else would they be asking for? Because Mr. Chidambaram and Mr. Manmohan Singh believe in a vision. They say so openly, again and again. Our vision is that 85% of India should live in cities. That means 500 million people should be moved from villages to cities. That's the kind of social engineering they're thinking of. It cannot be done unless we become a military state. And once those people move into the cities, they will be moved into the slums. Look what's happening in Delhi. People are moving there, and then the Commonwealth Games have to come, right? So people have to move out. The Indian government, the bid for the Commonwealth Games, 2,800 crores. The actual amount spent, 30,000 crores. Who's asking questions and where's that money going? You know what? Into stadiums for warming up. That's the kind of thing we need really badly in this country, stadiums for warming up. But I think there is a question I would like to ask the Maoists, and it is this: that I think a lot of the confusion comes from people who either want to say the Maoists and the state are killing the tribals. There's a sort of sandwich theory. The poor tribals are getting caught in the crossfire. There is another view which says the Maoists represent the tribals. Neither of these things is true, because it's true that 99% of the Maoists are tribals, but not the other way around. 99% of the tribals are not Maoists. When I say that there is an insurrection in this country, people ask me, do you believe in violence? Do you believe in violence? It's such a brain-dead question, because in human nature, there's always been violence and love. And when we decide to love and when we decide to be violent is something that every human being decides for themselves. But today, what has happened is that because of the virtual, of course the Maoists quite openly have an annihilation theory, but the Indian state did try to annihilate Maoists. And when it did that, the Maoists retreated into the forests, where for the last 30 years they have been working among the people and have a pretty formidable entrenched resistance in states like Dantewada. In places like Dantewada, places like Dandakaranya, very, very organized. But here you have a movement which says that its stated aim is to overthrow the Indian state with armed violence. But its armies are people who've never been outside the forest, who don't know what the Indian state is. Deliciously. I think it's fantastic not to know what India is, because I frankly don't know what India is either. But it doesn't know what that geographical outline which actually the British made for us is. So who do we mean when we say Maoists? The SP of Dantewada told me, see ma'am, my boys have killed these 18 Maoists. And he showed me these pictures. I said, well, I can see that you killed 18 people, but how am I supposed to know that they're Maoists? Mathe pe to nahi likha hai ki main Maoist hu. So he said, ma'am, see, they have malaria medicines and Dettol bottles and all these things from outside. So this is why they are Maoists. They probably had polythene bags full of bees as well. This is not to say that, that's all the weapons they have. They have AK-47s, they have machine, all their heavy weapons have been taken by the police. But what do we mean when we say Maoists? Are each of these people who know exactly what the Maoist vision for a state is? And what is that vision? In one of the questions that I keep asking is, can we leave the bauxite in the mountain? And that question is asked not just to the government, but also to the resistance. Because today, people like me are totally on the side of the resistance, because I feel that it is asking that very radical question. But in fact, they don't have a mining policy. And if you see what things are being said about mining, they are no different from what the Indian state says, except they don't believe in privatization, but they believe in state capitalism. And I think that this is a very, very serious issue that needs to be interrogated seriously, because the Adivasi Dong, the Dongriya Kond who are fighting in Niyamgiri are not fighting for state capitalism. They are fighting to leave the bauxite in the mountain. They are saying, we don't want bombs, we don't want planes, we don't want the things that you use aluminium for. We just want our mountain. So, if you can't say things like, we'll do ecologically friendly mining, because you don't understand what mining means then. You don't understand what bauxite mining means. Bauxite is used to produce alumina, which is then refined to produce aluminium. It uses tremendous amounts of water, tremendous amounts of electricity. You have to have big dams. You have to have big dams if you're going to mine bauxite, if you're going to produce that. You have to understand that if you're going to produce it and sell it to China, then China is going to make weapons and use it against you. So I feel that really, in this bandwidth of resistance movements, there needs to be some serious conversation, because perhaps those Gandhian movements, like the Narmada Bachao Andolan, do have a revolutionary vision. They do not have a revolutionary strategy of resistance. The Maoists have a revolutionary strategy of resistance, but they don't have a revolutionary vision. I do not believe that the communist parties have a vision that is different from the vision of the world there is today, and there is proof in China to tell us that eventually all the trains stop at a kind of capitalism. What China is doing in other countries in the world is unforgivable, So unless we have that vision, I think we're in a lot of trouble. And I want to say that while the state and many, many people, including myself, believe that the Maoist party does have a totalitarian vision, it does have a vision that does not tolerate dissent. It has not tolerated dissent on the ground. It needs to, and because it believes in that military strategy, needs to control the places it controls. And I cannot quarrel with that military strategy right now, because obviously when there's such a push against it, every other movement is slowly having to give way. And here is a movement that is refusing to give way. But then we have to think, what's going to happen with that? What kind of vision is that bringing? Not later, I'm not talking about when it comes to power, but even now. You know, right now here is something admirable that has happened, where you have a rock hard resistance, elastic because of all